"What did you do to the dashboard?" one of the sales reps whispered, eyes wide. "It actually makes sense now." I just smiled and walked past him, carrying my third coffee of the morning and the final draft of a regional sales reorg that had taken me 2 months of silent, unpaid overtime to build. I wasn't looking for praise. I just couldn't stand watching talent burn out inside a broken system. When I joined the company 3 years ago, the sales department was a graveyard of potential. High turnover, bloated quotas, and a CRM built like a bad joke. People didn't last, clients didn't stay, and leadership didn't notice because on paper, numbers still crawled forward. But I saw it for what it was. Slow motion collapse, so I did what no one asked me to do. I rebuilt everything from the ground up on my own time. I spent nights learning the guts of our back-end systems, weekends mapping regional overlaps. I sat with the lowest performing reps and listened, not to their excuses, but to the patterns no one else was catching. I proposed territory realignments based on historical velocity. I rewrote training guides, built new onboarding workflows, even coded a prototype dashboard that flagged stale leads before they rotted. And I did it all quietly. Because I believed something most people had stopped believing in, that if you do the right work, the right people will notice. And they did, at first. In a quarterly planning meeting, my models made it into the presentation deck. My name wasn't on the slides, but I didn't care. What mattered was that the team started winning. Within 3 months of rollout, average deal size grew 18%. Within 6 months, client churn dropped by half. And by month 9, our KPIs jumped 300%. People began whispering about a new era. Leadership called it a culture shift. No one said Olivia, but I could feel the change I had set in motion rippling across every department. Reps were energized, managers had direction, clients were happy and coming back. My manager, Marcus, pulled me aside one evening. "You're doing something special," he said. This could change your entire trajectory here." I nodded, not because I was proud, though I was, but because I believed him. I wasn't asking for a spotlight. I just wanted fairness. A seat at the table. Maybe a title that matched the weight I'd been carrying. Maybe, finally, a raise. So I kept my head down and worked even harder. Late nights, clean data, flawless transitions. I believed with everything in me that hard work still meant something in this world. I didn't know it then, but that belief was about to be tested in the cruelest way. It was a Thursday morning when the email landed. No subject line, just a timestamp and my name in lowercase. I clicked it, expecting something routine. An approval, a follow-up, maybe feedback on the Q2 rollout plan I'd just submitted. Instead, there were 7 words. "Your raise review has been delayed indefinitely." No greeting, no signature, no explanation, just a sentence, sterile and surgical. I read it twice, then a third time, hoping it would rearrange itself into something more human. But it didn't. It just sat there on my screen, cold and final. I didn't cry. I didn't gasp. I just sat still for a moment, hands resting on the keyboard, frozen somewhere between typing and shutting down. This wasn't about money, it was about what it meant. After months of rebuilding the company's core systems, staying past midnight more times than I could count, fixing what no one else had the courage or patience to fix, this was the response. I thought about all the weekends I'd worked while my friends posted pictures from weddings, hikes, dinners, about the nights I skipped sleep just to make sure data reconciled by morning, about the times I'd smiled through exhaustion, reminding myself that it would all be worth it. Apparently, it wasn't. I closed the email and stared at the blank desktop. All the pride I'd carried just days ago, The quiet belief that my work was building something lasting, soured into something sharp, not anger, not yet, but something slower, thicker, like being submerged in cement while smiling for a team photo. A knock on the glass pulled me out of it. It was Marcus. "Hey, great job on the Q2 pipeline. Leadership's really impressed with the turnaround." He grinned. "Big things coming soon?" I just nodded, my voice caught somewhere in the back of my throat. Big things for who? I wanted to ask, because clearly, not for me. He walked off, humming like nothing was broken. I didn't open another tab. I didn't touch my mouse. I just sat there, letting the silence fill the corners of the room. By noon, the email had disappeared from my inbox. Recalled? Deleted? I'd never know. But I remembered every word, because they weren't just denying me a raise, they were erasing my worth. Later that day, I passed the conference room. They were prepping slides for the executive review, my charts, my metrics, my system architecture. None of it had my name. I kept walking. Not because I didn't care, but because I cared too much to let them see me fall apart. If only I'd known that the worst part wasn't the insult. It was what would happen next. I once fought for Marcus in a budget meeting. The VPs wanted to outsource strategy consulting, said we didn't have anyone senior enough in-house. I spoke up. Marcus has the analytical mind for this. He just needs the space to lead. My voice trembled as I said it. I'd never defended anyone in that room before, but I believed in potential, and I believed in him. That memory hit like a gut punch when I opened the internal company newsletter the next morning. Q2 sales turnaround, strategic highlights from Director Marcus Lang. My heart didn't race. It dropped. I read the paragraph 3 times, my dashboards, my rollout framework, my realignment models, even the new outreach sequence I'd built on weekends, all of it, credited to him. Every slide, every win, every word I'd labored over now stood under his name, draped in executive praise like it was tailored for him. I scrolled to the bottom and saw the photo. Marcus in front of a whiteboard, arms crossed, smiling like he'd climbed Everest barefoot. And beneath it, the quote, "When you listen to the numbers, the system tells you how to lead." He was quoting me. My words. From a late-night brainstorm I'd shared with him in confidence, when we were just colleagues, solving problems, dreaming big. I wanted to be sick. I closed the page and sat still, the shame pouring in like floodwater through a cracked foundation. It wasn't just betrayal, it was erasure, surgical and deliberate. Worse, it came from someone I'd once helped, once trusted, once lifted when no one else would. And now he was standing where I should have stood, not just unbothered, but proud. There's a particular kind of humiliation that doesn't come with shouting or tears. It's the kind you swallow when you smile through clenched teeth in the break room, pretending you didn't just read your own work wearing someone else's name tag. At lunch, I passed by the executive lounge. Marcus was laughing with the CEO, holding a copy of my report. He didn't even glance at me, and just like that, I understood. I wasn't being overlooked. I was being replaced. Not because I'd failed, but because I'd made the mistake of thinking loyalty went both ways. Maybe that was my mistake, I murmured quietly, staring at my reflection in the black screen of my monitor. From that moment on, something hardened inside me. I didn't raise my hand in meetings. I didn't offer insights. I didn't fix the errors I noticed. I just watched. Because now I understood. I wasn't in a team. I was in a game I didn't agree to play. And games like this eventually collapse under their own weight. I didn't storm out. I didn't send an email. I didn't even close my laptop harder than usual. But something inside me shifted. The next morning, I skipped the sales sync. No explanation. No apology. I simply didn't click join. No one followed up. By Tuesday, I stopped responding to internal brainstorming threads. By Wednesday, I wasn't tagged in anything. They had wanted me invisible, so I gave them what they asked for, only on my terms. I didn't retaliate. I retracted. I stopped offering early data pulls. I didn't prep call notes. I let broken systems stay broken. The CRM bugs I once fixed before anyone noticed, I let them sit. And when Marcus's new hires asked me questions in Slack, simple things like, how do we run the churn forecast filter? I didn't ignore them. I simply replied, that's not in my scope anymore. I watched as confusion replaced confidence. As timelines slipped and meetings ran long, they didn't know I was testing them. They just knew the machine felt slower. I still showed up. I still smiled. But something behind my eyes had cooled. There's a kind of silence that screams louder than protest, and mine was becoming deafening. People noticed. Hey, you good? Rachel from finance asked one afternoon. Just focusing, I said. She paused like she wanted to press, then let it go. They always let it go. Because as long as I wasn't making noise, no one had to deal with what they'd done. But inside, I felt everything. The insult, the theft, the betrayal. It played on loop in my mind during every idle second. I replayed the moment Marcus smiled with my strategy in his hand, like it was his to hold. I wasn't over it. I was just done giving it oxygen. So I folded inward, precisely, professionally. My calendar slowly emptied. I excused myself from future planning sessions. When new project invites came, I declined. Bandwidth's tight right now, I'd type, and no one questioned it, because they didn't care if I showed up. They only cared if I caused waves. And I didn't. That was the point, because while they celebrated their streamlined success, I was already unplugging the cables beneath their feet, not in revenge, in clarity. If they thought I was dispensable, I'd let them live with that assumption. I once built this system piece by piece, and now, piece by piece, I was taking myself out of it. The brilliance they relied on, the stability they assumed would just stay, it was never theirs to begin with, and soon they'd feel the absence I refused to announce. The first thing I noticed was the silence. Not mine this time, but theirs. The team chat, once filled with celebratory gifs and Friday memes, turned clinical. Questions were asked, tasks assigned, no emojis, no energy. Even the tone had changed. Polite, cold, mechanical. I wasn't surprised. People sensed it, even if they didn't say it out loud. The shift in the air, the missing heartbeat of a system that once thrived because it was built on trust, not fear. Jamie, our top account executive, was the first to crack. She walked into my office on a Wednesday afternoon. No knock, no coffee, no preamble. Just stood there for a second before saying flatly, I gave notice. I blinked. You what? 2 weeks, she said. I'm done. I tried to read her face. Was she angry? Bitter? But her expression was strangely blank. This place doesn't feel like what I signed up for, she added, eyes already drifting toward the hallway. And honestly, I stayed because of you. Now that you're not really here anymore, what's the point? She left before I could respond. That sentence hit harder than any email ever could. By Friday, Ethan had gone quiet. He started signing off at exactly 5 p.m. on the dot. No more late nights, no follow-ups, just click, offline. And then I saw a trend. Weekly sales reviews got shorter. Fewer hands raised in meetings, fewer ideas volunteered, tasks got done, yes, but only what was assigned. No spark, no ownership, no pride. It wasn't mutiny. It was resignation, the emotional kind. People weren't angry, they were tired, not from overwork, but from pretending that things still mattered. The magic was gone. I watched as Marcus tried to rally the team, pep talks in morning stand-ups, Slack messages laced with exclamation points, but no one bit. "We're in a new chapter," he said in one meeting. "Let's own it." But the room stayed flat, because deep down they all knew this wasn't a chapter, it was an epilogue, and the story they believed in had already ended. I sat in those meetings and watched the slow decay of morale unfold, like paint peeling in the corners of a house no one maintained anymore. Not because someone lit a fire, but because the warmth had been taken away. My withdrawal hadn't caused the collapse, it had just exposed it. They thought people followed process, but people followed people. And now, they were quietly stepping away. Not in protest, but in quiet grief for something that once felt meaningful. I didn't stop them. I couldn't, because I knew what they hadn't said. If they could do that to her, they could do it to any of us. And that kind of truth doesn't get undone by motivational speeches. It started with a subject line. Quick question, Q3 review. Where's Olivia? Just a short email from a long-standing client. Nothing dramatic, no complaints, just curiosity. I stared at it for a while. They weren't supposed to notice. Marcus had taken over all client briefings after the Q2 rollout, convinced he could own the room with performance metrics and generic praise. I hadn't been looped in for weeks. I figured they'd moved on. I was wrong. Within days, 2 more emails landed. Will Olivia be leading the upcoming strategy session? We'd prefer continuity with the person who built our dashboard. Can she join? They weren't angry. They were confused. Because the person who had crafted their onboarding, trained their teams, fine-tuned their funnels, had vanished without explanation. Internally, I wasn't supposed to see these messages, but a friend in account management quietly CC'd me. "Just thought you'd want to know," she typed beneath the thread. "This is happening a lot." I didn't respond. I couldn't. But for the first time in weeks, something warm flickered in my chest. They noticed, not the titles, not the presentations. Me, the person behind the work. The one who listened, who customized everything instead of copy-pasting some lazy pitch deck. The clients hadn't forgotten, and that mattered more than any newsletter, any leadership praise, any forced smile from Marcus. Then came the escalation. One of our biggest contracts, a tech firm that had renewed 3 years in a row, held off on signing. "Until we confirm Olivia's role going forward," the email read, "we'll be pausing the renewal process." No anger, no threats, just business. But the message was clear. We came for the product, but we stayed for the person. I heard about the meeting that followed. Marcus scrambling to explain, the client politely deflecting, refusing to commit. He told them I was transitioning into a new internal role. They didn't buy it. Later that day, the CEO forwarded Marcus a message from the client's VP. "We've built trust with Olivia over 2 years. If she's no longer involved, we'll need to reassess alignment." They didn't demand me back. They didn't fight. They simply withdrew, gracefully, quietly, like I had. And in that, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Seen. Not through applause or spotlight, but through absence. Through the space I used to fill, the kind of validation that doesn't shout, but reverberates. It wasn't revenge, it wasn't justice, but it was recognition. And that was enough to make me smile again. It happened on a Monday, 9:03 a.m. I got a ping from an old teammate. "Hey, is the CRM supposed to be down?" I didn't reply. By 9:11, the team chat was flooded. "I can't access any client records. My dashboard's blank. Every single sales note is gone. And then, login failed. Admin access required. Phone started ringing. Not just incoming calls, but panicked dials from within the building. By 9:24, the sales floor was buzzing with nervous energy. People refreshing screens, whispering frantically, slamming laptops shut. By 9:31, I heard Marcus's voice echo through the hallway, loud, clipped, controlled in a way that barely disguised panic. Why is no one escalating this? Where's IT? But it didn't have the answer, because IT didn't build the system. I did. Every integration, every filter, every logic flow that made that CRM run like a custom machine, it had come from my hands. I didn't own it legally, but I had been the architect, the maintainer, the silent operator in the background, and now no one knew how to fix it. By 9:45, the company-wide Slack lit up in red banners. Urgent. Client access failure. Please stand by. Marketing halted all outbound. Sales canceled calls. Customer service had to read off Excel backups, one row at a time. I sat in my office, untouched by the chaos, watching as they tried to restart something they no longer understood. "Olivia, can you join us in the war room?" Someone finally asked. I didn't move. They hadn't asked when it mattered. Not when I built it. Not when I refined it. Not when I was erased from the process. And now they were watching the cost of that silence play out in real time. By 10:10, executives were pacing. I passed by the glass conference room just long enough to see the whiteboard filled with frantic scribbles. Client retention risk, integration recovery plan, CRM emergency access. But none of it mattered because they still hadn't asked the right question. It wasn't how the system broke. It was why no one left who could fix it. By noon, I overheard Marcus on the phone. His voice was hushed but sharp. "No, I don't know her override credentials. She handled that directly with the vendor. Look, I wasn't copied on those conversations." Of course he wasn't. He hadn't earned that level of trust. The irony wasn't lost on me. The man who had taken credit for my work was now drowning in it. And all around him, the team he thought he led stood frozen, paralyzed, watching his confidence fracture with every unanswered call. For the first time in weeks, they realized what I had really done for them. And for the first time ever, he couldn't pretend I hadn't been there. The first cancellation came in on Tuesday, a brief email from a major client, just 2 sentences long. "Given recent instability, we've decided not to move forward with our third quarter renewal. Please consider this our formal withdrawal. No drama, no emotion, just precision, like a scalpel." By Wednesday, 3 more followed. The reasons varied: lack of continuity, data reliability concerns, strategic misalignment, but the message was the same. "We don't trust you anymore." The team scrambled. Account managers made apology calls. Directors offered discounts. Even the CEO got involved, trying to personally retain our biggest client, a healthcare software firm worth over $800,000 a year. They didn't budge. "We came for Olivia's system," their COO said flatly on the call, "not for the people pretending to understand it." And that was only the beginning. By Friday, the tally hit $2.4 million in canceled contracts. And that's just what was confirmed. Internally, no one knew what to say. There were no outbursts, no blame games, just silence. That heavy, choking silence that creeps into a room when everyone knows the ship is sinking, but no one wants to say it out loud. Marcus stopped walking with a bounce in his step. His tie loosened, his jaw tightened. He no longer greeted people in the hallway. He just passed by, eyes locked to his phone, like maybe the next email would save him. But none of them did. They didn't know what they were losing until it was already gone. And me? I didn't say a word. I didn't gloat. I didn't offer solutions. I didn't check in or subtly insert myself back into the narrative. I simply observed. Not because I wanted them to fail, but because I needed them to finally see the truth they had refused to acknowledge, that the work they'd buried under someone else's name was the work holding everything together. It wasn't revenge, it was gravity, pulling down every shortcut, every inflated ego, every decision made without understanding what kept the system alive in the first place. I walked past the glass-walled boardroom one afternoon and caught a glimpse of the whiteboard. Client triage, budget freeze, internal review, no mention of vision, of growth, of innovation, just panic control. They'd built the business on my shoulders and never thought to ask what would happen if I stepped aside. Now they knew, and there was nothing left to do but watch the dominoes fall. One deal, one client, one illusion at a time. The email came in on a Sunday night. Subject line, reconnection opportunity. Let's talk? I didn't open it right away. I read the preview from my lock screen. Hi, Olivia. Hope you're well. We'd love to explore a possible discussion around future collaboration. Are you available this week? No mention of what had happened. No reference to the raise, no apology, just a vague invitation dressed in corporate neutrality. I placed the phone face down and went back to slicing cucumbers for dinner. By now, I recognized the tone. I'd used it myself before, years ago when I was still trying to patch things that were already broken. This wasn't outreach. It was rescue protocol. On Monday morning, another email followed, this time from Marcus. Heard you might be in talks with a few clients. Would be great to catch up. Let me know if you have time to swing by the office. As if nothing had happened, as if we were old colleagues grabbing coffee between meetings. The audacity didn't even surprise me anymore. It felt predictable. I didn't reply. Instead, I walked down to the waterfront, air crisp with fall, and opened my notebook, one I'd been filling with new plans, client names, system sketches. 3 companies had already reached out, unsolicited, asking if I'd be open to consulting. I hadn't even pitched yet. They had found me. Word travels fast when silence makes noise. By Wednesday, HR followed up again, this time with a calendar invite. 15-minute touch base, leadership and people ops. I declined it without comment. No anger, no games, just closure. Because I wasn't looking for a raise anymore. I wasn't hoping for recognition. I wasn't waiting to be seen. I had been seen. By the right people. The ones who mattered. The ones who'd left with me. The ones who trusted me enough to say, we'd rather build something new with you than stay somewhere that forgot who made it work. Later that week, I heard they'd brought in a consultant to patch the CRM. It didn't go well. Apparently, half the architecture wasn't documented because no one ever asked me to. They assumed I'd always be there, that I was part of the furniture, that good work just appeared. Now they were learning that trust and talent aren't plug and play. I closed my laptop that evening with a kind of peace I hadn't felt in months. This wasn't revenge, this wasn't retaliation, it was reclamation, not of position, but of power. And in the quiet that followed, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Free. I didn't announce anything, no LinkedIn post, no farewell email, no dramatic exit speech, just a small LLC filing on a Tuesday, a quiet launch page, and 3 client names in my inbox by Thursday. They didn't ask what I was building, they asked when they could be part of it. These were the clients who had walked away when I did, not with noise, but with clarity. They'd seen the writing on the wall before the wall came down, and now they wanted something better, smarter, real, So I gave them what I'd always given: structure, foresight, trust, only this time on my terms. We didn't have a logo yet, no office, no fancy onboarding slides, just results. Delivered fast, clean, and without red tape. Within a month, we'd recovered what my old company had lost, and then some. I heard they were still scrambling. A second wave of layoffs had hit. The consultant failed to rebuild the CRM. Marcus had been transitioned out. But I didn't gloat. There was no satisfaction in their chaos, only quiet confirmation that I was never the problem. I had simply been the solution they couldn't see, until I was gone. People started reaching out again, former colleagues, old mentors, even strangers. How did you do it so gracefully? Didn't it hurt? Of course it hurt, but I had learned something powerful through the fall. You don't have to raise your voice to reclaim your place. You just have to walk away like you know where you're going, and I did. Every email I sent from my new domain felt like a new beginning. Every signed contract felt like a quiet vindication. No headlines, no confetti, just the steady, unshakable knowing I won. Not because I beat them, but because I no longer needed them to see me. The people who mattered already had. And that, in the end, was my crown.